want to eliminate what they call the deep state. The deep state is a cadre of professionals dedicated to honoring the Constitution, the laws of this country, and carrying out the policies of the Congress and the President. The deep state dedicated to carrying out the policies of the President. The deep state dedicated to carrying out the policies of the President.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. And guess what? We are live. We had a little snafu, a little goof up on the way we set things up, so we're making it live for everybody. You can all say thank you to Mr. Uman for suggesting that. And I thought, hey, why not? Let's just kind of carry last night's Sunday Night Live, the zoo, over to today. And it'll take a little while, but we're going to build up one heck of a good audience. Now, as everyone knows, we've been discussing the Charlie Kirk episodes lately. And interestingly, a lot of people jumped on the Charlie Kirk bandwagon, and others threw themselves off the bandwagon. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but some big news showed up. So what am I talking about? The United Nations, an organization that I do not like, do not agree with, do not think the United States of America should be participating in, but still, it is an international political body. And the United Nations voted overwhelmingly, very unanimously, wasn't even close, to say that Palestine is officially recognized as a nation state. And Israel did not want that. But you see, Israel has created these problems for themselves. And now Israel is admitting they have a problem. Benjamin Netanyahu, King Bibi, is admitting they have a problem. There is inside Israel, folks, by the way, there is inside Israel opposition politically to what has been going on. But in America, we don't hear about that because the media only tells us about King Bibi and all the American politicians over there sucking up what I call, or what many consider and say allegedly are laundered U.S. tax dollars that are sent to Israel and then are paid back to our politicians. So Israel has now isolated itself, and nations around the world are boycotting them, and they're refusing to sell Israel weapons. And so the question is asked, could it be that Israel is run by a genocidal madman and genocidal government system and genocidal military? I'm sure the dead Palestinian civilians would say, yes, they're run by a bunch of madmen, but they are dead, so they don't say anything. Now, following Netanyahu's statements today, that Israel is entering into what they're calling an economic isolation. In other words, other nations are isolating them. They believe they're genocidal, that they're committing war crimes. In fact, the Prime Minister of Italy said that if Netanyahu lands in her country, she will arrest him. There is an arrest warrant for him with the International Criminal Court. And much like the United Nations, I think the International Criminal Court is a giant sack of political shit. But that still is their opinions. And if they get a hold of people, they'll arrest them and try them and, well, give them whatever punishment they want. So yeah, Netanyahu is admitting that they're entering a time of economic isolation because of their genocidal conquests. So the Israeli government opposition leader, his name is Yair Lapid, he came out and stated rather honestly, here's the quote, "This is a crazy statement," meaning by Netanyahu. "Isolation is not a decree of fate. It is a product of misguided and failed policies of Netanyahu and his government. They, meaning Netanyahu and his government, misguided government, he says, quote, they are turning Israel into a third world country and are not even trying to change the situation. No, they're not. They're not trying to change a damn thing. They're continuing to chase people out of their homes or give them a 10-minute warning. People flee with everything they can carry, and then their homes are just bombed to the fucking ground. I watched these videos today, and I was shocked to see this. They're not even trying to hide it. They are recording it. They are releasing it in social media. They're showing the world what they're doing. But folks, Israel doesn't want you to hear this next part. No, Mr. Opposition Leader, Israel will not change its course. Israel is hell-bent on eliminating all non-Jews from Palestinian territory. But the United Nations has voted and agreed to accept Palestine as an independent state, by the way, as it was before 1948, when European Jews relocated themselves down there, committed multiple massacres, and declared themselves a new country for European Jews. And they named their secular state Israel, borrowing from the Bible that name to give the appearance of legitimacy. So 48, 58, 68, 78, 88, 98, 108, 118. It'll be 80 years old in another 5 years. So it's been around long enough that this is who we are, right? In any event, folks, it is a horrible world in which we live, where people in charge of governments, they assassinate their political opponents, they assassinate their social opponents. They send missiles and jets and drones to kill the people they don't like. They ethnically cleanse, as in Ukraine ethnically cleansing Russian ethnic peoples in Ukraine with impunity, right? And then when I would think rational, logical, intelligent, civil people want to have discourse, what we end up with is exposing, or rather they expose themselves, the absolute evil that exists, not just around the world, folks, but in the United States of America. And we're going to get into that next. And I would like you to get your questions down below for Mr. Uman. And we'll get you up here on the screen, and we'll talk about what you want to talk about or make the points you want to discuss. And I can agree or disagree. I can be neutral, whatever. It's just good academics, right? It's all academic, meaning it's discussion. You will not hear me say, take up your torches and pitchforks and go get the bad guys. That's not what I'm here for. What I'm here to do is say, Houston, we have a problem. And then tell you guys you need to be prepared with food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. That is my role in this. A lot of people continue to ask me, John, when do we get out the torches and pitchforks? And I say, and continue to say, I don't know, but when it's time, you will know it. There will be no doubts in your mind. So back to the part about evil being in our country. Evil, telling us who they are. I believe we are now occupied by a deep state, which consists, in my opinion, of domestic enemies the Constitution warns us about, and enemies that are described in the oath of office that all government employees, all military men are required to take to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And you're supposed to raise your right hand and make that swear. But apparently that oath is not taken serious. And you and I have discussed this, and I've called for swift, harsh, and real penalties for those who violate their oath. So I want to start with a reminder, and I talked about that this morning. The DOD, used to be the Department of Defense. I guess now it's the DOW, Department of War, has suspended Army Colonel Scott Stevens for saying Charlie Kirk deserved to be assassinated. And I've heard other commenters today say the same thing I did, that he should be court-martialed for violating the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ. He should be tried for conduct unbecoming a senior officer, and I believe he should be dishonorably discharged instantly. But we'll find out. We are going to have to find out. So the left is on the attack, folks. They are not learning any lessons. Remember when they didn't like what we would say about gays or trans or Democrats or fruitcakes or child molesters or communists or Antifa, name any of your left-wing characters. They decided they would try and destroy us. They called it cancel culture. And the idea was to freeze free speech by paralyzing people who became afraid to speak their mind and share an opinion. Not only did people lose their jobs, they had bank accounts frozen. I believe Trump was one of them. Anyways, the shoe is now on the other hand, as Chevy Chase would say. And now we're hearing from it. So let me tell you what the low IQ racist Representative Democrat Jasmine Crockett, talking about things that Charlie Kirk talked about. But instead of toning down the rhetoric, she is upping the rhetoric and compared immigrations and customs enforcement raids to slave patrols. You heard me correct. Slave patrols. We don't have slaves in this country. We have criminals who are illegal aliens in this country. But Jasmine Eyelashes Crockett always plays the race card, and she pisses all of us off. But we don't have to cancel her. Her congressional district has now been taken from her. So we can all say bye-bye, biatch, because Texas redistricted and drew their lines, and now she lives in a district that will not be able to vote for her to get her in office. She will now belong to the minority of that area and lose the election. Good. Now, when I talk about domestic enemies in our country, I am talking about everyone who's an enemy of freedom, liberty, who opposes the Constitution and your rights, everyone who opposes our culture, traditions, our law, and our true history as a people who fought for freedom, and it's been extended to everybody who is rightfully here. So we have enemies, though, right now, domestic, that are in our country from foreign countries with foreign religions and foreign cultures and traditions and foreign belief systems. And also, folks, within our own government, the deep state. The deep state is loaded with domestic enemies. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is my opinion that the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, is hired, is paying, and giving authority to domestic enemies within their organization, and they need to be arrested. The FBI reportedly attempted to hide the identity of Charlie Kirk's assassination, the suspect's transgender boyfriend. They're trying to hide it. But I'm not surprised that the FBI butt pirates would do that. I mean, we have to keep asking the question, folks, and keep demanding of government. How many mass killers has the FBI been in contact with? Have they groomed? And have they turned loose on Americans? Remember the last one that we really learned a lot about, and then we learned nothing else afterwards, was Mr. Crooks in Butler County, Pennsylvania. He had FBI contacts. He had burner phones. He had accounts, social media accounts set up in Europe. I think he had bank accounts set up overseas. How many mass killers has the FBI groomed and turned loose? One of the calls, the locators went to Washington, D.C., where the FBI is at. But we, the people, we don't get to know who the FBI liars are. And they hide behind their badges. And in my opinion, Kash Patel is too weak and he is too cowardly to do anything. We need strength, not bullshitters like the current FBI directors. We can call, we can demand, we can harass them, lawfully, of course, but they don't quit. They just sit in their jobs. I'm talking about Cash and Dan Bongino, and we're not seeing the FBI getting cleaned up. It's so bad that when someone like Charlie Kirk is assassinated, they sit on and hide evidence and protect people. They protect trannies. Folks, it's not just college students like Charlie Kirk's would-be assassin. It goes all the way up. The nurse that was fired yesterday because she was offended that a doctor in her office would be celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and telling everyone all about what a good thing it was. So she went to the administrator and said, that is wrong, and they fired her. Well, today they rehired her because you, my friends, made a shit pile of noise. And that's the best thing we can do, and that's all we really have the authority to do, is call Washington, call the government. Any of these businesses we hear about, call them and let them have it. Chin Music said today, I'm going to Office Depot because they were the ones that said we will not print any Charlie Kirk memorabilia. And that person at that store got removed. And the person that came in behind him says, we're going to print your stuff for free now. But I wanted to go buy an Office Depot. We don't have one in the area. Anyways, but how about this? Delta Airlines. Everyone knows about Delta. There was a Delta pilot who celebrated and cheered and thought Charlie Kirk's assassination was great. Well, Delta says that guy has now been removed from service. I sure hope he is fired and not just sent home for a couple of days. But being an asshole has consequences in cancel culture. This is a big whoopsie. Democrats didn't realize they're going to get canceled. Now, my original Prepared Mind channel that had 80,000 subscribers, they got just stunted. They took all the money. They took all of the new people signing up, subscribers. They unsubscribed people. Ultimately, they just killed the channel. They tried back in California, back in 2018, way back then, cancel culture tried getting me fired. They failed. But I did not want to work in a hostile work environment, so I resigned. I quit. I retired. But here I am, folks. Cancel culture has consequences now because Republicans are pissed. They're pissed, right? There is a consequence. And this is interesting. I think this is really important. I heard a couple of people talk about it today at high volume. And then I believe the Italian hillbilly Kaz mentioned it in one of our discussions that we have behind the scenes. And it has to do with anger. And I remember at one point saying, it's okay to be angry. You should be able to get angry. Being angry is what humans do. But being angry about Charlie Kirk, we were saddened. There's different levels that we all go through, right? There's righteous anger out there now. Righteous anger. There's consequences for these satanic Democrats. So someone created a website called Expose Charlie's Murderers. And they've now received over 50,000 submissions of just asshole Democrats who celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk. And they're calling themselves this Operation Expose Charlie's Murderers, calling themselves the largest firing operation in history. And Democrats don't like it, folks. They're screaming, it's not fair. Well, once again, I didn't know life was fair. I'm pretty sure my mom told me life was fair. All right, folks, we're 20 minutes in. Get your questions, comments down below because I want to know what you're thinking today. What you're thinking today. Now, I'm going to run through some stuff real quick here. It's very important. In Virginia, they have a gubernatorial candidate running for governor. And I think she is an evil Democrat. Anyways, someone that works for her, an evil Democrat, has said some stupid shit. But the candidate is Abigail Spanberger. And it's pronounced properly, Spammy Butt Girl. But some people pronounce it Spanberger. This worker that's working for a political candidate was dumb enough to come out and say Charlie Kirk deserved to die. And so it's hurting them politically, folks. They're losing their executive jobs. They're losing their high-dollar airline pilot, doctor jobs. They're getting fired from their high-dollar political jobs. Great. Now, by the way, Abigail Spammy Butt Girl allegedly wants trans men in girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers. Surprise? I'm not. I really am not. Not surprised at all. Let's continue, though. This was a big deal. I want you guys to really think about this. This was very fascinating. A senator named Mike Lee has some legislation that is intended to crush the propaganda machine, the deep state lies, and the legislation will restore the Smith-Mundt Act, which keeps anyone with a license from the government, and Uman is particularly keen on this, that television stations, satellite television stations, news radio can lose their broadcasting licenses for broadcasting lies, bullshit, and propaganda. And it should, the Smith-Mundt Act, also work against the government. So they're calling it the Charlie Kirk Act. I think it's rather clever. I know it uses Charlie Kirk. I know it takes advantage of the current situation and politicizes it. But TV and satellite stations can lose their licenses if this passes. And government personnel can also be fined or fired for lying. I think the timing is appropriate because we're tired of being lied to. I'm sure every patriot out here would agree it's about time to restore honesty in government and media and no more anti-American lies and bullshit. So let's keep a close eye on that, and we need to yell, albeit politely, but yell very loudly at all of our politicians to pass the Charlie Kirk Act, because Charlie Kirk was about free speech and he was about politeness. He was about politeness, wasn't he? I think he was. He was very polite. Government is really jacked up, folks. Let's see. Let's go with this. A college in Tennessee has fired their dean. Right? Another high-level executive position for celebrating Charlie Kirk's assassination. And the board that fired her just criticized the shit out of her for a lack of empathy. See, it's not just idiot students and unemployed Antifa-type losers. These demonic Democrats, I believe, are exposing themselves at the executive level and high government levels. And I think it's illustrious of asshole politicians like Dollar Store Obama Jeffries. I think they should all be arrested for inciting violence and sedition and possibly treason. A lot of them are in that camp. I think it's time to fix it. Just crazy business, folks. Crazy business. Let's continue if we shall. We've got a lot to discuss. I've got a few more minutes, then I want to turn the topics over to you guys. Let's see. What have I got here? I've got, another more deranged leftist protesters. Yeah, folks, singing songs. The words were written on, allegedly, the assassin's bullet casings. So at a New York University Charlie Kirk vigil, these idiot, deranged, demonic, just rotten Democrats showed up and shouted, I want you to fucking die, this song. They shouted that at the college Republican club president. So, folks, understand this. I think this is important. These are the levels. There are levels of response when a nation is attacked, when freedom and liberty is attacked, when we're up against the wall. It starts with fear. We tried responding, and they brought up cancel culture and scared us all. And now we're seeing our country being attacked by BLM, Antifa, and now Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. The president was shot. So you go from fear to shock and sadness. Now, we didn't get the sadness because Trump didn't get killed, but Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So you go from fear to shock to grief. And the next thing is anger. And Americans are now becoming angry at people like these idiot kids, these idiot professors, these idiot doctors, nurses, pilots, government officials, bureaucrats, political aides. You see, it's not just the Antifa kids. It's their parents. It's the professional class is full of this. So after fear, shock, grief, and anger, folks, violence is the next step. I'm not telling you to be violent, but understand where we're at in the cycle. These things are cyclical. As nations are created, mature, prosper, and then decline and fail. And we go into these cycles. Understand where we're at in the cycle. Understand the satanic, evil cult of death, the Democrats. These scum want to keep pushing. They want to keep threatening people, and they want to keep committing acts of violence. That's what they're doing. They want to commit acts of violence. Remember when? This is an old one. A Target store was evacuated in Utah. That's right, Utah, the same state where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Apparently, it's a trans and fruitcake hotspot. In fact, there is no safe city or no safe state from these domestic Democrat terrorists. But a Target store was evacuated after reports of trans extremists that called in bomb threats at multiple locations. Why? Because Target was being criticized and they removed their literal satanic pedophilia groomer products. Remember that? I do. It was just a couple years ago. But, that was then, and they're still at it. They're still at it, folks. They're still at it. In fact, in Texas, another one of these evil Democrat scumbags, a Texas Tech activist communist student, has been arrested and expelled. What did she do? She assaulted people who were holding a Charlie Kirk vigil. She assaulted people who were sad and commiserating and honoring Charlie. And she was pulled away after assaulting people, screaming, "Fuck y'all, yo, homie, dead. He got shot in the head." That's how callous and rotten these people are. Remember, Democrats are the party of death. They're the party of hatred. And it's becoming more and more obvious. They now own cancel culture all to themselves. They're being arrested. They're being fired. Remember, once we were told they're the party of tolerance. They're open-minded. They're the intelligent ones, right? Well, this is unbelievable. Democrat Antifa communist types burned down a Charlie Kirk memorial in Colorado. A Colorado family built this. So these scumbags showed up, smashed the memorial, and then broke car windows out of the family's cars. They truly are the party, folks, that loves murder, death, terror, burning, rape, looting, everything. Abortion, they're all about the death, folks. They're all about the death. And the world is getting sick and tired of these fucking people, folks. I'm going to get to your questions here in a second. It is Monday, and I know a lot of times I got a lot to say on Monday. But I've got one more item to cover, and I'll save the rest of my stuff for later. But I told you that people have gone from being shocked and in grief to anger, and then taking action, which sometimes includes violence. And I don't want to glorify or glamorize violence, but it's happening. Street justice, aka vigilantism, is returning to America because the world is fed up with woke. We're fed up with diversity, equity, inclusion. We're fed up with all the racist bullshit, and we're fed up with invaders from other countries. So, a man was arrested for urinating on a child in a movie theater. Well, the guy was actually beaten to a pulp by the people. He was, it was a citizen's arrest situation. He was beaten to a pulp. And I see this as something that's going to become more frequent. But get this, folks. He pisses on a child, exposes his genitals to everyone in the movie theater. What political party do you think he belongs to? Well, he's arrested, taken before a judge, and the judge let him out. No bail required. Indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and other serious charges. Let him out on the street. Are you surprised? I know that we're upset with that idea and disgusted by it, but I'm not surprised. All right, folks, we've had some fun. It is now time for the inner circle, and it's you guys and your questions. And we're back. Welcome to the bunker, and it is time for the inner circle. Mr. Uman, I know we're live. If you show up late, folks, rewind back to the beginning because we covered a lot of ground. So Redneck Roughneck opens up the discussion and says, we vote in November 2026 for the midterms. Will the Charlie Kirk momentum carry through, or will they need another big ordeal for some kind to keep this rolling? I think they are rallying up and just keep pushing, wanting a civil war to break out so they can campaign on it. You're talking about the Democrats in the second part of your comment. I think that that's what is going to happen, is the Democrats want violence. They want to be able to point to Americans, patriots, and say, all of those people are white supremacists. They'll play the race card. All of those people are transphobes, homophobes, Islamophobes. They're gonna try ruining us, right? They're gonna try going after us, making fun of us, berating us, trying to use peer pressure. I think America's had enough. They want civil war, folks, because they're not going to lose the intellectual battle. That's what Charlie Kirk demonstrated, is if you sit down and have a civil conversation and ask young Democrats, which is what he did. Turning Point USA was about going to young Americans and asking them to explain themselves. And he did something that's very popular. It's called using Socratic method. And what that means is you ask someone a question and you have them answer the question. Then you ask another question and you make them explain. And it's also a very interesting learning process, because at some point, and Charlie proved this a lot, they cannot make a salient point. They cannot make a series of comments that come to a realistic, legitimate, logical conclusion. And so that's the learning experience that comes from what Charlie Kirk was doing. They don't like that. He was converting people over. He was converting gays to straight, trannies back to normal, converting Democrats to Republicans. People who wanted to destroy America became lovers of America. They couldn't have that. So they want destruction. Charlie Kirk is now dead, sadly, very sadly. So it is going to be up to us, Redneck Roughneck, all of us true Americans, to keep his name alive, his mission alive. And hopefully, right, because they killed him, 100 more Charlie Kirks will rise. I don't want Ben Shapiro. I don't want Nick Fuentes. They have their own brand. Right? Charlie was a Christian. He wasn't an atheist. He wasn't a Jew. He wasn't a Muslim. We don't need that, right? Charlie Kirk's thing was using his Christian faith to talk politely to people. Not make them feel retarded, but again, using Socratic method. So yeah, we can keep his name alive, his spirit alive, his mission alive. And that is just over a year from now. What's going to also keep him alive is these left-wing, absolute, asinine knuckleheads are going to continue their push for death, violence, murder, mayhem, looting, burning, and everything they do. And that will also cause and continue to cause the rest of America, in my opinion, to look disfavorably upon the Democrats. And as a reminder, this is a great topic. Does everyone recall the approval ratings of Democrat congressmen in Washington, D.C.? Uman, you remember, right? The last poll I saw was less than 20% approval rating. Less than 20%. So if half the country is Democrat, 50% of the country, and out of that 50%, only 40% approve of them, that means 60% of Democrats disapprove of the Democrat Party. They don't have much support. So all they really have left is violence and terrorism, threats and mayhem. That's exactly what the Bolsheviks used. That's exactly what every evil regime has ever done, is resort to violence, to terrorize people, silence people, have people obey out of fear. Well, we've gone past the fear stage, have we not? We're now engaged with them. We're angry with them, and we'll protect ourselves. Let us continue, Mr. Uman. Who do you want to put up there next? And it's Heidi says there's a lot of places and people who won't be getting expected donations this year. Very true. As we move towards the election in 2026, the campaign season is going to see a shortage of money going to Democrat candidates. There is no more USAID money that's being sent out to non-government organizations who then take that money and bundle it and donate it back to Democrats. Democrats at the state level, Democrats at the local level, and yes, Democrats at the national level, senators, representatives. They're not going to be getting all that free money. Act Blue, which was another way that foreign donations could go to a political action committee called Act Blue, who then turn around and give money to Democrat candidates. It was a way to funnel illegal offshore, that is to say, non-domestic contributions, and fund the destruction of America. Furthermore, there is a big push to require Israel to register as a foreign agent. So if they want to contribute, if they want to lobby, if they want to talk to America and our politicians, they have to register that way instead of doing what they're doing, which is very much similar to Act Blue, with one exception. Israel is playing the game the old-fashioned smart way, and they're putting money on both sides. Remember this uniparty thing we talk about, right? The Republicans, the Democrats, they're both wings of the same dirty bird, right? Dirty bird. We want Trump's judges put in, but the Republicans in the Senate and the Republicans in Congress won't do their fucking jobs. Trump has control of the House and the Senate through the Republican Party, and they're stonewalling, dragging their feet, lying, cheating, stealing. They're going on vacation. Remember that? It was just a few weeks back. They took a 6-week vacation. So they did not have to vote on the Epstein resolution to release the hoax list, which is not a hoax list. I have still not forgotten about Epstein, folks. Don't worry. I can't wait to jump back on that bandwagon with you and everyone else. But everyone needs to grieve through Charlie Kirk and get through that and wake up and realize the same people, the same super wealthy people that are raping children on Epstein's Island and other pedophile networks, they also send money to Washington, D.C. In fact, some of them are in Washington, D.C. I think a lot of them are in Washington, D.C. And we need to get them. So thank you, Heidi. Great topic. Donations for the next election will not be coming the way they used to. That could change the entire election, not just atmosphere, but voter turnout, etc. And again, less than 20% of American voters approve of the Democrats. Very, very, very low. Unless I'm wrong and it's less than 20% of Democrats approve of Democrats. Well, in any event, I'm on the show. I can't go do the research. Mr. Uman, what do we want to discuss next? What do we got here? And it's not a bot, H. Lynn, who writes, in my opinion, if Donald J. Trump, president, would have went in like a hurricane and stuck to his plans instead of being wishy-washy, I think things would look different right now. The answer is yes. While campaigning to win, Donald Trump was allowed to bark, and viciously bark. But as soon as he was inaugurated, he had his chain, his collar, his leash was yanked. He did some great stuff. And folks, he's still fighting. I know he's still fighting. He's still trying. I know it. But he's trying to play the game his way. It's very difficult. But if he had done as you suggest, yeah, things would be very different. If they just said, you know what? Fuck our political donors. Release the list. Just do it. Leak it out there. The real list. Get it out there. And let the chips land where they may. Fuck it. Let's just burn these people, these evil bastards. I would feel a whole lot different about Trump. I would. I know everyone else would too. The Democrats would lose their shit. Republicans would go, finally. But we got a problem, folks. Trump is playing his art of the deal game. And I am not that patient. But he is. And he continues to play all kinds of games, folks. Not just with the Epstein files. But traitors in the government. Traitors in the CIA, traitors in the FBI, traitors in Congress, right? He plays his political games. This is for keeps. As Charlie has demonstrated, this is for real. And the consequences of failure is losing your life. And I don't know if that has been lost on Trump, who took a bullet through the ear. But he's doing what he does. In fact, Trump is now ready to impose sanctions on Russia. Well, wait, aren't we already sanctioning them? Additional sanctions. Now, these Trump threats and threats of more tariff threats, I think they're now being viewed by foreign nations as a type of punishment and financial warfare. So now these other nations are refusing to buy U.S. bonds. Now, do they buy U.S. bonds? Other nations, whether it's Japan or China or Russia or Europe, do they buy our bonds because they want to support the government? Or is it supposed to be a risk-free return and then use those bonds to conduct international business? Well, that was the story until Biden decided to flip the light switch off on Russia and confiscate $350 billion in bonds that the Russians paid for. In other words, like a big bad daddy, Biden says, go to your room, you don't get your money back. And Trump still has not given it back. And here we are. So other nations are refusing to buy U.S. bonds because they can be frozen and taken. And what they're doing is they're looking for safe trading partners that won't penalize them, won't boss them around, will not threaten their sovereignty. And this game is one I don't think Trump is going to do very well with. Now, again, understood. Countries like China, you don't want to do business with America? Okay, America is only, say, 33% of the business, 25%. If they stop doing business with America because of Trump and his tariffs, they're going to lose 25% of their international income. It's going to hurt them, but it's also going to hurt America. And I think everyone should tighten their belts, and they should prepare mentally for hard times coming. Again, to fix the problems in America, to bring jobs, manufacturing, to bring back the production of all of our good food, all of our good American products. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of money and a lot of pain and suffering. Difficulty, in other words, economically. The whole world is going to go into this uncomfortable place. And being prepared is going to be a way that you and I can more easily weather it. So get prepared. Because if things go bad, they go sideways, they go wonky anywhere, it could very quickly turn into a Mad Max scenario. Especially if these leftists continue to be punished. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their careers. That means they can't afford to make car payments. They can't afford rent. I guess they're going to have to move back home with their boomer parents, their boomer Republican parents, and their Gen X Republican parents. Wow, what a world. Mr. Uman, where do we go next? We got Chin Music, and he says, J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, is going to take the mic on the Charlie Kirk show tonight. It's time to give the modern communist Democrat Party the political burial they've been begging for. This, Chin Music says, is an articulate choice to start digging the hole to bury them in. Now, like Trump, there's some things J.D. Vance does that I'm not particularly fond of. One of them is wearing a kippah and banging his head against a rock wall. But he is a very smart man, very clever, well-educated, intelligent. And I expect that he is going to do as Chin Music suggests. I think he is going to bait the left. Right? Just like fishing, you splash. You throw your hook out there with your bait on it. And he's going to put things in the water that Democrats will not be able to refuse. And hook them. Drag them in. I'm expecting that. I look forward to it. Probably sometime in the middle of the night, I'll wake up, as I often do, and read for a while and see what the hell's going on while the rest of the world, well, at least the rest of America, is sleeping. Anyways, Chin Music, very, very astute of you, my friend, to do that, to find that. Yeah, they've been begging for it, folks, the left. And now it's coming. Right? The grief is still there, but the anger is building and action is being taken. There is a very quickly, Uman, a conspiracy theory out there that they faked Charlie's death in order to excite the world into fighting back. I don't buy that. I don't believe that. In any event, just wanted to let you guys know I still hear all the conspiracy theories. All right. Mr. Uman, where do we go next? And Uman goes next. He says he heard a news story today that beef prices, as in cow flesh, beef prices are going to go up dramatically soon because of tariffs on imports and resulting shortages. Stock up while you can. I believe that is sound advice. Now, I'm down here in Florida. The cost of living in Florida is extremely high. Now, I went and moved, as you guys know, from California to the super secret RMZ location, which was equally as expensive as California. But then to Florida here, where it was equally expensive as California. But now it's more. Ground beef was $2.50 a pound. It could go on sale as low as $1.50 a pound 5, 6, 7 years ago. But now I go in there and beef prices are freaking high. $6, $7, $8, $9 a pound. It's incredible. And now we're being told, yes, they're going to go up higher. Thank you, Uman, for reporting this. They do want to say, why are we importing all this beef from other countries? We don't know what they're feeding them. We don't know if it is beef or if we're getting kangaroo meat. Who knows what we're getting from these other countries? A lot of meat tests have been done and allegedly show DNA from a variety of animals, including humans. But I don't know what brand. I don't know what company. I don't know how true that is, but it wouldn't fucking surprise me in any event. Just like having goods manufactured in the United States, made from minerals and metals and materials that are created in the United States, U.S. beef is more expensive. And there could be shortages if we tariff the shit out of foreign beef. And people go, oh, don't we have enough beef? Yeah, we do, but we sell our beef elsewhere, I guess. Kind of like the United States of America likes to sell its oil to other nations while we buy cheap oil from Iraq and other countries. So we sell our oil at a premium to other countries, and then we buy the cheapest shit we possibly can. It's an interesting system, don't you think? I would think that if we're producing our own oil up in the Alaskan shelf, offshore drilling, Texas, and other parts of the country, that we would keep our own oil here. But American oil companies want to make a lot more money, so they sell it elsewhere. But America gets a deal from OPEC, or at least they did, because of the U.S. dollar, the petrodollar. And that is changing too, my friends. In fact, Qatar, does everyone remember just a few weeks ago, Qatar was going to buy the United States of America a new Air Force One because Boeing couldn't figure out how to supply one fast enough. That was Qatar. Am I right, Uman? Do you remember that? And the Democrats were like, it's terrible. Trump was, it's treason to accept money. This is money laundering. This is blah, 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 blah. Foreign interference from a foreign government, right? Well, Qatar is now pissed off at Israel because Israel decided to bomb inside their sovereign nation. They're pissed off at the United States for continuing to support Israel and their efforts. And Qatar is now saying, you know what? We're not going to put money into the United States. I think they're going to put $15 billion of Qatar oil money into the United States to help with manufacturing, production, our economy. But rather than take $15 billion and keep Qatar as an ally, Trump wants to continue to give billions of dollars to Israel and support Israel's military efforts. Peace or war? Prosperity or debt? I think for me, the question is a very simple question to answer. We should put America first, worry about America's economy, America's people. And boy, do we have problems, yes? All right, Mr. Uman, we've got about 5 minutes left on the show. We're going to go with Christopher Hull, who is CJ Flex, who writes, I don't think people with dual citizenship should be in our government, period. Well, I'll take it one step further. I don't think they should be in our government. And I certainly don't think they should be allowed to vote. Pick a country. You want to be a Canadian citizen? You can only vote in Canada. You don't get dual citizenship and all the perks that go with it, because how do we know you're not voting in favor of something that benefits Canada or England or Germany or Israel or Iraq or Iran or Japan or whatever? And I do not believe that unless someone is born in this country, you should not be able to run for local, state, or federal office. Take a look at these foreign fucks we have in our country. Rashid Tlaib, idiot. That ridiculous-looking Somali freak who wants to be the mayor of Minnesota, or Minneapolis, Minnesota. The complete Muslim moron who, because he is a handsome, articulate guy, not born in America, wants to be the mayor of New York. He wants to do everything un-American and communist there. How about Ilhan Omar, who's committed fraud, married her brother, which is incestuous, lied, cheated, and stole, and she shits on America. And all of these foreigners, folks, whether they're in the national government, state, or even local government, like the dumb bitch in Boston who was on the city council, born in another country. I think she's another one of these Somali fucks. Born in another country, comes in, gets elected because people are a bunch of suckers. They've got their white liberal guilt. And she committed fraud, stole a bunch of money, and always talked about how she's going to represent Somalia first. You don't get to do that. You take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, in any country like Somalia that has pirates, threatens to kill Americans, kills American military personnel, and contributes to world terrorism. They should not be in any government office, period. They're lucky to be here as fucking citizens, period. They should have to give up their citizenship in those other countries if they want to be here and vote. Otherwise, I don't have a problem with dual citizenship. Just those issues. All right. Thank you, Christopher Hole. Well done, sir. And we move on, if we shall. We got 3 minutes left, Mr. Ooman. We got Franny's Farm. She writes, the transgender militant groups. We should call them transgendarms. Anyways, they're real and have been around for years, says Franny's Farm. Yes, they have. Yes, they have. I recall years ago, these transgender men pretending to be women would show up at debates and say that they wanted to have debates and then physically threaten debate hosts, debate participants, because they did not like the fact that they were talked into a corner. They were put on the spot. They couldn't answer the question right. They felt insulted. They had a microaggression, which they consider an actual act of violence, because they got upset. So that must have been violent. Wow, folks, these people. They've been around for years. And then after 2020, Democrats realized they could go buy guns. They could go buy shotguns, handguns, rifles. And they have begun training with them. Right? Those communist Antifa fucks in Washington, Portland, they have a shooting club even. Now, that doesn't make them on par with military or veterans. Veterans out here in the public who have returned to civilian life. We are quite useful in that we can train and coordinate and help plan defensive strategies for ourselves and our neighbors and our neighborhoods. I'm not saying we're going to create an army and do anything with it. I'm saying we can defend ourselves and help others defend themselves. And probably be far more efficient, especially if you are a prepper. A prepper, because preppers have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, and means of self-defense. Preppers, Americans, America firsters, understand that if the lights go out, if shit gets bad, everyone else, they're not going to be able to get gas. They may have their water and their power turned off. They won't be able to go buy food. Their banking may be turned off. And that puts us at an advantage because we will have food and we have an understanding because of this channel and many like it, where we discuss being prepared, and knowledge is a huge part of that. If you don't know what the hell's going on, you're confused, scared. You'll make mistakes. And that's what all these other people are going to do, folks. That's why being a prepper is key, because chance favors the prepared mind. Aren't you glad you are a prepper? Folks, be sure and thumbs up. Be sure and subscribe if you haven't. Be sure and share the internet address. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning, 0 dark 30.